Hello guys, it's Good Like, and I'm making a video about Game Dev Tycoon, of all things. A little bit random, right? Well, I was talking to Aniki yesterday, or possibly 2 days ago from the release of the video, and I mentioned Game Dev Tycoon to him, because I've been playing it a bit. I thought, why not? I haven't played a game that requires you to explore the living crap out of a wiki for a while. So I did. So I mentioned this to Aniki, and Aniki asks me a question. Are you going to make a series about Game Dev Tycoon? Now the question did not seem very ominous, and I responded, nah, it's not my thing. Can't you even imagine me making a series about Game Dev Tycoon? Have you seen all the other people making the series about Game Dev Tycoon? They don't know what they're doing. I know what I'm doing. I can't make a series out of this. But I could maybe make a video where I explain how the game works to people who cannot be arsed to read the wiki and stuff like that. And then Aniki came and said, I approve of this video. And for those who do not understand what Aniki means when he says that he approves of this video, what he truly means is, Mind Slave, I command you to make this video right here, right now, without any delay. Now, of course, I've been around with Aniki for a while, so his mind control abilities don't work very well on me. But it became a little annoying, so I decided, what the hell, I'll make a video. After all, I haven't made a video for fucking ages. Mostly because I've been busy, and yay, the summer has begun. And just randomly, I'm just gonna go out there. Today has already been absolutely batshit insane. I wonder what else the summer has in store for me, but it's already been crazy. I'm not gonna go into details though. I want to get your hopes up or anything. Anyway, that about explains why I'm making a video about Game Dev Tycoon, so let's get right into it. First of all, what's in the background? In the background, that's me playing Game Dev Tycoon at 3 times the speed, because the music sounds awesome when it's 3 times the speed. Tell me it ain't so. It's basically me just kinda messing around, kinda beating the game, by making action games only. Now, I will explain as to why that is not a very good idea fairly soon. But basically, it went pretty well regardless of the fact that it was probably supposed to fail miserably way before the end, so yeah. So how does this game work, do you ask? Well, I would say that the main goal of the game is to make very good video games that are top. Nobody knows what really top means. You could guess it's like something that gets really good review scores. It's tough. And also making an incredible amount of fans. As a result of those 2 goals, you will also come into a very great fortune, possibly in billions of unspecified currency. Now, this game proposes a very interesting definition for a good top game. In fact, it is a game that is better than the last game you've made by a specific amount. Now this means all kinds of crazy. For example, if you were to make a game, then somehow survive for 30 years, which is impossible, without making any other games, you could make a game that's only slightly better 30 years later, and you would still get top review scores. I know, that doesn't really make sense. I mean, what about all the progress? The 30 years of progress we just ignored? Doesn't matter. Just made a little bit better game. Congratulations. Review scores inbound. And it does bring in a lot of other kind of shenanigans as to how the game really ends up working, as you will soon understand after I attempt to explain some basic things. Now, one way or the other, you probably want to make decent games. If your games are too shit, and you make too many mistakes while making them, then this video game will tank your scores down a notch regardless. So the best strategy is probably still to just make good games, or at least not absolutely shit games. So I'll try to explain simply as to how do you achieve such a marvelous thing. It really comes down to a few simple factors. First, you pick a genre and theme combination. Now, genre is the more important one, so you should probably pick it first, and then you just tack on a theme that fits. For example, RPG, you probably want to go with something simple like fantasy or medieval, and not go balloony like space. Leave space to action, you know? Like, what would be a space RPG anyway? What you would be like a star that's like fighting other stars and collecting dust to become a greater star in the past? Like, and you level up as you grow more size? I mean, come on. While that may sound exciting to you because it's strange, this game is made around your average person who just likes average things like, you know, his swords or guns and stuff, not subatomic particles. So yeah, keep in mind of that, just keep it simple. You'll have less trouble that way. Now when it comes to picking genres, there's something you should know. It is much simpler to make good games with certain genres than others. Now, the easiest ones are RPGs and adventures, whereas action games, strategy and simulations are on the hard side. This is because in order to be a good game, each of these games has to meet a certain technology and design ratio. For RPGs, this ratio is skewed towards the design side. For action games, towards the technical side. And the problem with this game is that it's much easier to generate design points than technical points by default. Which means that if you want to get that crazy 1.8 tech to design ratio which you need for action, you're probably gonna need to work for it and adjust something more than the sliders. Whereas to get 0.6 for your RPGs, it's pathetic how easy that is. You'll see in my game that I've adjusted the sliders in such a way that they would generate the maximum possible tech points. And I've also added features to parts of the game like the engine, which generate additional tech points, which forces them to generate even more additional tech points. And I'm still short of the ratio until I begin to train my employees exclusively in technology so they actually generate more technology points. Which is a lot of work when on the other hand you just set your sliders right and bam, you're done. Easy peasy. As to how you should set your sliders, there's some basic rules. Basically, it all depends on your genre. For example, for RPG, you probably want to maximize your story, maximize your dialogues, whereas in an action game you want to maximize your engine and AI. which is more the technical side of things. If you follow these baselines, you should be for the most part fine, as long as you determine what you really need for the game, or look it up on the wiki like everybody else. You just must make sure that there is time put into it, and if it's especially important, you put especially excessive amounts of time into it, and if it's unimportant, you make sure that you don't put time into it. Ah, fuck it, I'll just tell you how to get this fucking slider sorted, because you're just gonna screw up anyway if I don't yet. Okay, for action, strategy, and simulation games, you should make sure to maximize your engine while leaving your... What are those things actually? I don't have them here available. While leaving your gameplay somewhat average and completely taking away all the story and quests, as well as taking down everything from dialogues, averaging out your level design and maximizing AI, and then maximizing graphics, completely ignoring world design and leaving a little bit for the sound. Now for adventures or RPGs, you want to completely ignore the engine, stack up those story and quests, and make sure you leave a decent amount of gameplay. Absolutely maximize the dialogues, absolutely ignore the AI, and leave a little bit for the level design, then maximize world design and graphics, and leaving the sound as low as possible. It's not really necessary. Casual games are the ones that start throwing in the wrenches, because they are absolutely bored and messed about. Honestly, I wouldn't suggest making casual games, but if you are ever in a predicament where you have to, then you should absolutely focus on gameplay 100%, ignoring engine and story quests, maximize your level design while absolutely minimizing AI and leaving a good decent chunk for dialogues, completely ignore the world design, and stack up that graphics and sound. That should pretty much keep you covered for all these types of games. There, you don't need to go to the wiki anymore, aren't you happy? Right. Where were we? Another thing you should be careful of is features. As you progress through the game, you can research a lot of random fucking crap, like better AI, or multiplayer, or some stupid crap like mouse control. Who needs mouse control? Come on. Keyboard for the win. One thing to notice is that these features work in the following way. They have their own fields to which they correspond, and they increase the points generated from that field by a little, depending on how much money they really cost. If they cost more, they grant more points, is basically how it works. Unless you're trying to play like I am and you're picking some really borderline choices, action games, you should probably never ever actually add any feature to any of your games. Because while they will generate more points, and generating more points will result in a better game, they will also usually tend to skew your ratio and cost a lot of money. Trust me, you don't want or need your ratio skewed, nor do you want to spend more money early on with all these features, as you will see in this game, I do go bankrupt once. I saved the game like right before it, but thankfully of course, and saved myself, but it's really close, and I do add a lot of features early on to get those good ratios. That doesn't really work very well in the early games. And later on, you can just train your entire squad of programmers by more than enough. Anyway, so these features aren't really that important. They're just gonna throw in wrenches in your calculations if you were to do any. So don't bother with them. I've definitely played at least 2 games to 30 years and further without a single feature in a single game, except for like improving graphics, which you need to actually make decent games later on. But that's it. Graphics is the only thing that I improved. Everything else was zero. You don't need them. Don't use them. Obviously, don't research them. It's a waste of points. You'll need those points. What will you need those points? You'll need those points for your employees. Your employees. Your employees, you will need the points for. And some random stuff like marketing research and target audience research. That's basically the only things that you should ever research, really, and graphics. Other than that, you need to save those points to train your employees. Now, I've seen a lot of people play. Okay, that's a lie, a lot of people. I've seen like 2, 3. But that's a significant number. And the first thought is, I should probably not buy all these employees early on, because I don't have the money for it, and I will end up just going bankrupt. That is kind of true if you also spend a bunch of money on something else. If you do not research or buy features, though, you should have more than enough money to afford your full team from the very start. I mean, there's another money sink in the game in the shape of form of development licenses for various consoles, but they're fairly cheap early on, and you will probably want to make your games for PC later on anyway. The reason the PC really works so well, despite usually having absolutely abysmally low market shares besides like the very start of the game or very late in the game, is because it accepts all games equally. Whereas making something crazy like a simulation on a gameling will most likely end up with a horrible result, PC will accept it. And PC is the only system that actually does this. You can make any type of a game on it, you'll be fine. To top it off, if you make it for mature audiences, which works with a large amount of combinations, you will get a massive boost to your sales as well. I think the coefficient for that was 1.3. God knows how that coefficient is used, but it sounds like a big coefficient. I don't know why you wouldn't use a big coefficient like 1.3. It sounds like a very good idea. So yeah, just stick to PC, really. The only time you shouldn't be making games for PC is where you're taking publishing deals, which I will talk about later. Other than that, mature games for PC, win, and another time win. So if you make mature games for PC, which also cost almost nothing to develop, tiny little bit of money, you won't have any money sinks whatsoever, so you can put them all into your employees and training, which will end up making you decent employees. So as soon as you get out of your stupid garage, get 4 dudes under your name immediately. One important note though, those dudes must be as shit as possible. I may ask, why the fuck would you want to hire 4 shit employees under your name? Well, there's 2 reasons for that. First, they're cheap. Even if you do have money, you're still somewhat limited, so you don't want to just go all out at the start. It's better to go cheap. You're still gonna have 4 people. I mean, they're probably still better than like 2 level 2 dudes, and they're gonna ask less money for sure. Second, since they are so shit, they have more degrees of improvement. As I said, you want to make your games better and better and better and better. But you want to do that by a very specific amount. This specific amount is not very large. I believe it fluctuates between 12 to 20%. Now, if you suddenly make twice as good a game because you bought yourself some world-class employees for no reason, what's gonna end up happening is that you're gonna waste a shit ton of opportunities to slowly make games, and as a result, it will become harder and harder for you to make better games because the margin will keep increasing. I mean, it's 12%, but 12% of a greater number is even a greater number, so you need to keep increasing more and more and more. Thankfully, like I said, in 30 years it should still be within somewhere where training is more than enough to give you good games. So, start smaller and shittier. Well, what do they say in these situations? The deeper in the shit you are, the more you can climb? Is that a saying? That's probably not a saying. I just made that up. Okay, let's move on. So you're gonna buy yourself 4 employees and you're gonna be all like, oh yeah, there's 5 people, so I'm gonna make 5 times as good a game. Well, first of all, no, your game is barely gonna improve actually. But on top of that, most likely your first game that you'll make with these employees is gonna be absolutely disastrous. You need to prepare for this. This is how this game works. If you put your employees to use, they fuck it up. Now, fuck it up is a relative word. You may get absolutely crazy lucky like this one guy I saw and still get like 3 10s, the probability of which is somewhere 1 to 64. Lucky son of a bitch, what can I say? But most of the time you'll see that your scores will go down after you purchase a new employee. So it would also make sense to buy as many employees at the same time, right? Because you then only screw up one game total instead of purchasing an employee, making a game, screwing it up, purchasing another employee, screwing up another game, purchasing a third employee, screwing up a third game, and so on and so forth. This you know, saving yourself some time and money, one way or the other. An important thing to note is that if you dare to do such depravity as to try to overwork your suddenly newly introduced employees and make them work on your new game before they have accustomed to your office, they will screw up not 1 but 2 video games, because apparently if they are not fully working, that game doesn't count. Look, Game Dev Tycoon is an asshole. You're gonna have to get used to this shit. It's what it does. The best way to get them accustomed is do some good old contract work. Just keep those contracts coming. You're probably gonna fail the first ones even if they're like easy mode, like make 2 of each in like 8 weeks. You're still gonna fail. They're just gonna be like, I don't understand. What is this? Is this a PC you put in front of me? I gotta write this shit down, bros. This is a PC. God damn it. That much thinking has got me tired. Gotta drink my goddamn coffee. Oh, feeling better already. Right, where's the keyboard? That's basically gonna be your first few weeks with these employees. There's nothing you can do about it, so just get those contracts and make your shitty game, and from then on you should be set. Now, when it comes to what kind of employees you should hire, you should probably go for balanced employees in most cases, with the only exception being action games. Balanced employees will usually do you fine because you can adjust your sliders well enough that they will be within the range in which the games will be acceptably good. But when it comes to action games, that's not very much the case. If you were to look through some of the games I think that I made for publishers, the ratio there becomes around 1.42, 1.43, something like that. This is with balanced employees and absolutely biased technology ratio, meaning that like you can get more than that. That's the best you can get without training your employees differently. And the lowest ratio that is acceptable for action games is 1.44. So it's like 0.02 off the damn ratio. Like so close. So close. It's a real shame, I know. I've screwed up a few games here and there. It still ends up being fine because as long as you keep screwing up, your games still keep improving little by little, so you're still getting good scores. It's when you finally get to the ratio, you have to maintain it, otherwise you will fall back down to shittier games and you will start making bad scores. So basically, if you intend to make action games only, for whatever reason, you should get some of those tech guys. Otherwise, you should probably just stick to the good old balanced crew. And when you're looking for employees, at least to start, don't put more than 80,000 in. Like, you're looking for shit employees anyway. You'll find them with 80,000. Like, putting 500,000 this early on not only is a waste, because the threshold at which you get an additional employee is 440,000, so you wasted 60,000. Good job, bro. Or even worse, where some people put 1,000,000, in which they wasted 560 millions. I'm sorry, 560,000. Well done, well done. So just stick to 80,000 and keep it like that early on. You can put whatever once you're earning millions a week. So you got yourself a team. You've done the shitty contracts with them. You got them through your first shitty game, and then you start seeing their rest bars popping up, but they're all randomized. This can happen because you hired them on different times. I mean, there's a slight difference. What you should try to do though is to sync them together. Employees go to vacation pretty much until their bar fills up, plus a little bit of extra time, which I think is constant. So you want to do it like this. You wait until all of their bars are showing up. You send to vacation the employee that has the lowest bar. Then you wait until his bar catches up with the next employee. Send that employee to vacation and repeat for every single one of them. Later on in the game you will get 6 employees, which means 2 more. You'll have to do this again with them. And this is very important because if you don't do this, your employees just randomly will start wanting to go to vacation, so you will never be able to actually use your full employees to work. And that can affect certain games a lot. Like, a lot. It's really better to just sync them up and try to put them to vacation at the same time. And final notes on employees in training. Train their research. Something a lot of people don't do. Some of them don't train their research because they don't know how to train their research, because the names for the training are absolute bollocks. What are the names for their training? Let us take a look. Game Dev Gems, Make Me Think, Game Design for Pirates, Don't Repeat Yourself, and Coding Complete. Now, normally games will send you on insanely difficult quests to figure out obscure puzzles and the like, but usually those games aren't tycoons, though tycoon games don't do that. Games like The Secret World do that, and do that very well. Their investigation missions are amazing. This is not The Secret World. The only conspiracy that you may possibly have is some random crap that you could come up because of circumstance, not actual things. So, you'd think that this game would not have the audacity to withhold important information like, oh, I wonder what does this do? Well, let's be honest here. You can sort of figure out some of them. Okay, so When you think of don't repeat yourself, you're probably thinking about speed. What else not repeating yourself could mean? Now you could think not repeating yourself could be referring to some sort of design or technology problem which you wouldn't be aware of because you are not a game designer. Yes, overthinking things happens, right? So you could be like they're overthinking and thinking maybe there's some hidden meaning to it. No, there isn't. But of course the game doesn't tell you, so you are forgiven for thinking such nonsense. Coding complete just doesn't make any sense. Like, you could say it's technology, but then the name doesn't directly correlate to technology, does it? It's more like coding complete. Something is incomplete. When it's incomplete, what do? You research. And yet it has nothing to do with research. It's all about technology and a little bit of design. Now, game design for pirates. This is a giveaway of like, it's a design thing, because it's about game design. But then why did you add for pirates? What has piracy got to do with design? How does the piracy figure here? Why is it piracy? Why? And it keeps, like, distracting your mind, thinking, what could it possibly mean? Why would it be there? There has to be some purpose for it, right? And yet there isn't. Make me think. Well, this one, while it does refer to research, and this is the one that you should be training, once again makes no sense. So thinking. You need thinking for design, you need thinking for technology, you need thinking for research. You could say that you need thinking for speed in the sense that in order to gain speed, you need to optimize the way you work. So really all of these skills require you to think. Once again, it's very ambiguous. And then finally, a very crazy thing is that you have 5 things to learn, but 4 subjects. So what is Game Dev Gems? And it completely becomes an absolute mystery and puzzle. Now, I know that it's an equal amount of design and technology. I'm not sure if it's as effective to train it twice or to train the 2 separately once. I'm not sure, but I don't like it. It just creates confusion. Like, if there were only 4, you could use, like, deduction. You'd say, okay, let's say that, don't repeat yourself the speed, the researchers make me think that design is design, okay, code is technology. It kind of works, right? But then you have that Game Dev Gems, and it just throws the bone there. It throws a wrench. I'm sorry, not a bone. It throws a wrench into the mechanism. It doesn't throw any bones. Bones have not been thrown at all. If had they been thrown, it would be easy, but it is not. So this is a horrible menu, but it's irrelevant. You should just focus once on Make Me Think, and then once on, well, something else. What you should focus... It really depends on whether your employees are balanced or unbalanced and how you want them to be. Train whichever would make them balanced or unbalanced or whatever you want them to be. And if they're already there, you can always give them a little bit of speed. Basically, I go for speed instead of research once the research is capped, because there will be times when your research is capped and later it will uncap. It really depends on what you want to go there. But just make sure you train twice for each employee. And this is why you need all those research points, because later on you will be scrounging for every single last one of them. Early on you'll be swimming in them, like you'll be seeing 500, bro. I don't need research points. And then you'll be spending like more than 400 every single game. And you won't be making 400 every single game unless you really train the living crap out of that research. So go do that. That'll be easy. Well, I think I've given you most of the basic information in regards to making games and employees. But there are a few other things that you should probably know if you really want to make that game successful. Once you enter the office from the garage, you will be prompted to learn medium games. or more specifically once you actually get some employees. You should do that immediately. Now, having medium games available and then making small games will ruin your small games. Basically, if you can make medium games and you make small games, you won't get as good review scores as if you were not able to make medium games and you made small games. Once again, this game's an asshole. But that doesn't matter because of some very nice feature called publishing deals. You should always start taking publishing deals as soon as you can make good games, you know. You're done with your employee shit game, get to the publishing deals. And the reason you want to take publishing deals is that your medium games also won't have the best scores as soon as you get medium games. I know, this game is such a fucking asshole. Just doesn't want to give you good scores. Get used to it. Why? Because you need to have 100,000 fans before you get the good score. How to get 100,000 fans fast? The answer is publishing deals. Fans, from what I've seen, I believe at least so, scale with sales. So more sales, more fans. I might be wrong. I could be wrong, but I believe that this is at least to a certain degree the case. So what you want to do is just take the publishing deal that you can manage and go knock yourself out with it. And you'll see our fans skyrocket fairly fast. Looking at the footage here, I went from... Alright, let's see, this is the first game publisher game. I had 2.5k fans. By the time it finished selling, I was sitting at 9,000. After the next game, 20,000 and a half. Third game, 29,000. So yeah, basically 10,000 a game plus, seemingly. As soon as you hit 10k, start making your own medium games. No longer make the publishing deals, and that's when you will rake in the great monies. I went from minus 110,000 to 12 million, and that includes $1 million that I had to pay for bank because I had gone into the bankrupt of the game before. So it's really about 13 million I just made from single game at that point. That's pretty crazy. If you keep making games really well, soon you will get the large games. Once again, develop large games immediately. But, once again for publishers. Once again, they will give you an insane amount of sales and does a lot of fans. I think I got over 20,000 fans in a single sale. Again, I usually rack up somewhere above 300,000 fans before making my own large games. I think it's a good number. I believe you should be fine a little bit earlier too. I think it's 250,000. And from then on you should really just stick to large games. I made AAA games before, but I think they take way too long to develop to actually be worth it. Maybe MMOs are worth it, but I wouldn't bet on it. I mean, this playthrough that you can see in the background, I made large MMOs and they were largely successful. I'm not gonna spoil it, but I made a lot of money in like 4 years. I multiplied my capital by 5 times, which is a lot. Very much. Another thing, don't make sequels. Sequels, the worst enemy. There's almost never a situation where you actually want to make a sequel. A sequel works like this. If you make a sequel with the same engine, you will get bad reviews. If you make a sequel with a newer engine, you will get great reviews. The problem here is, of course, that sequel is a better game, but it's a better game by quite a large margin. And you don't want those large margins when you're making better games. You want to make your games, like I said, better by a specific amount that isn't very large. Sequels will not help you. They will make a much better game, and in being a much better game, it will screw you over. Because after the sequel, your next game is probably gonna be shit, even if you train up your employees. Same thing applies to trends. If you hit a trend, try to avoid it. Try not to make for it. If you can't avoid it, you're gonna have to use your last resort. Bugs. Most people will wait for bugs to disappear. You should not wait for bugs to disappear. Bugs are your friends. Sneaky little tiny friends that will take care of your problems for you. Now, the bugs basically reduce your score. From my experience, you will usually make around more or less 10% score worth of bugs. So, if your score would be 1000, if you keep all the bugs in after you're done, your score is going to be around 900. Sometimes a bit less, sometimes a bit more. It varies, of course. But that's usually what I've noticed after making about 100 games and having practically the same digit appear in my calculations. So, if you hit a trend, just leave all the bugs in. You will most likely still get a perfect game. I think this happens in one of my games. I believe I hit the mature trend when I'm making a mature game for the PC. And I leave all the bugs in just to make sure that the score goes down as much as possible. You may want to leave bugs normally as well, but not so much. Like I said, you want to improve somewhere 12 to 20%. So if you see that your game has suddenly got like 50% more points, like your total technology plus design was 100, now it's 150. You probably want to leave some of the bugs in. A good amount. Maybe even all of them. Not gonna go deep into maths. If you don't leave your bugs in, you won't be entirely screwed. You will just have a little bit harder time. But at the very least, make sure that you don't delay too long. Like after you're done, that you don't start racking up even more points. Like, you're done, you're done. Click the finish. There are almost no exception to this. If you hit the strange trend, I suggest just lay off games for a bit. Go do some contracts, go do some research, go make an engine. Just so you avoid it, because it will have the opposite effect. If you make a normal game during that trend, you will have negative score. So that is one of a few times where you may want to make a sequel, because the benefit from the sequel will counteract the negative from the strange trend. But the problem is that the trends can disappear and reappear randomly, and you can miss it, and you'll just end up with the positive. So in that situation, you're screwed. You're just suddenly made a super duper game. The opposite can also be true. It can just pop up right before you release the game. In that case, you should probably get rid of all of your bugs. That would be probably pretty much the only situation where you should get rid of all of your bugs and just wrap up a few extra points just to counteract that negative balance. It's all really about balancing, you know? You get benefits there, you make sure you take them down a notch, and you'll be fine. Finally, the last thing I want to talk about. R&D lab and the hardware lab. Now, once you move into the last office, if you train a design specialist, you can open an R&D lab, and if you train a technology specialist, you can open a hardware lab. To train such a specialist, you need somebody with 700 points in the respectable stat. So the best way to get these people is to invest 1.2 million into finding those new employees as soon as you get there. Usually if you do that, you will get either 700 worthy people immediately, or they will be close enough that you can get them up in 1 or 2 training sessions. Do that, buy them immediately, and train them in their specialization, because R&D lab and hardware lab will give you a lot of cash if you use them correctly. The R&D lab will give you graphics 6, graphics 7, the grid, which is kind of like the Steam equivalent, and they will give you the hardware, which will allow you to open the hardware lab and get your own console. What I suggest to do is start with a graphics 6 if it's available. If it's not, then go immediately for the internet and grid, then hardware. And by that time, if you've been making games and engines, you should have graphics 7s. So grab that as well. As for your console, I think graphics 7 is more than enough for it. In this particular game I researched a bunch of stuff for it because, I don't know, just felt like it. It was late, I wasn't thinking straight, can't really blame me. And once you have your own console, you should be more than set to make MMOs. Oh yeah. MMOs are the killer money thingy-majigs in this game. If you make them right, they will make you billions. Billions. Yes, billions. So, that's it really. I mean, I'm sure there's some tiny little advice that I missed, like don't make a sequel within 40 weeks or otherwise 10 months. But like I said, just don't make sequels at all. That solves it. The same thing goes for expansions, but I mean, come on, if you're making MMOs, you're probably not going to be even capable of producing an expansion that fast. I mean, in my game, I make 2 MMOs and produce expansions for one and then the other, and I never run into the 10 months issue, I believe. And I'm making large games which are faster to make than AAA, and you can't make smaller than a large MMO, so you really shouldn't have any trouble unless you like literally make MMO then expansion like an idiot, which you shouldn't do, because nobody does that shit. Instead they make patches. So patch 1.1, patch 1.2, and then patch 1.3, patch 1.4, and then expansion. Alright, that should about cover it. I will leave you now with the remaining footage of this playthrough of Game Dev Tycoon with action-only games. I thank you for watching and listening, whichever you were doing, if you were doing any of these. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below and I shall try to answer them to the best of my ability. I may not be an expert, but I do know a few things here and there, especially if the questions are going to be about Game Dev Tycoon. And I shall see you later, hopefully soon. Bye!